Welcome staff, gallery and councillors to Richmond Valley Council's May Ordinary Council Meeting. We'll start the meeting with the acknowledgement of country. Richmond Valley Council recognises the people of the Bundjalung Nations as custodians and traditional owners of this land, and we value and appreciate the continuing culture connection to lands, their living culture and their unique role in the life of this region in the past, present and future. Mr General Manager, could you read the prayer, please?
Dear Lord, we meet to serve our Richmond Valley community, to use our resources wisely and well, to represent all members of our community fairly, to make decisions that promote the common good. We recognise our responsibility to the past and the future, and the rights and needs of both individuals and community. As trusted servants, we seek blessings on our deliberations and on our efforts here today. May we act wisely and well. Amen.
Amen. Item 3 on the agenda is public access and question time. We have one request, Dr Richard Gates, in relation to item 10, notice of a motion voluntary house raising scheme, item 15.1, councillor superannuation, and item 15.3, flood recovery community support. Welcome Mr Gates, make your way to the podium please, and when you're ready, please commence.
Thank you, Mayor, councillors, staff, gallery. I refer to Councillor Deegan's commendable notice of motion to help residents recover from the recent flood in an efficient and timely way to avoid potential damage to new internal works when they refit their homes. But I'm disturbed by the note that Council will not complete its floodplain risk management plan until 2023, a year and a half away, when Council's website indicates that the Richmond Valley flood study is expected to be completed by late 2021 and will guide the direction of the future floodplain management actions in Richmond Valley, quote from today. Are they one and the same thing? Whatever happened to that study, which I understand has been with Council since February of this year? Why has that study not been made available for public scrutiny? Yes, I have read Richmond Valley Council's Flood 2022 report, which was given to the Premier, where it's indicated that there will be a revision of this draft report. But the reason I raise this question is that we should see what mistakes were made in that report so that they can be corrected for future reports. And that would be useful feedback from the public. We need to learn from our mistakes, and the community can help in that process. The study needs to be released in its draft form for the public. I wrote about the deficiencies of the draft Evans Head flood study in 2014 and was promised a response from the consultant, but a response was never forthcoming. I'm happy to make that correspondence available. Those deficiencies included incorrect catchment boundaries, which left out several large areas which were not included in the final plan and which have a substantial bearing on what happens at the iron gates at Evans Head and for other areas where houses were badly flooded, this time along the Woodburn-Evans Head Road. While the council website notes that, quote, the flood model will extend beyond the boundaries shown on the map to capture the full floodplain, the Iron Gates residential matter is scheduled to be heard in June of this year, next month, in the absence of accurate, up-to-date flood modelling. Hence, I support Councillor Deegan's request for urgency in completing the floodplain risk management, as it would not be appropriate to consider the Iron Gates matter until accurate and current information is available, and it might be appropriate to entertain other strategies such as buyback of high-risk flood risk properties where building raising would be a waste of time and money, given what we now know about climate change and the fact that the Northern Rivers region is past the carrying capacity of the land, and set for more problems, not just from floods, but from sea level rise. But there's another matter here relating to the floods, and that is the fact that the two of the Evans Head flood plans are not available to the public at all, and a special request needs to be made to see them. Why? Why is it so difficult to make this information available? It should be readily available. Which brings me to item 15.3, flood recovery community support options, and the request for a delay for the section 402 requirement for a community strategic plan, because we are recovering from various apocalyptic events of the past several years, and Council has, in quotes, a plan to respond directly to flood recovery over the next 12 months and to support this recovery for the following 2 years. While the plan is short on the kind of detail that should be included in a community strategic plan, Minister Tuckerman makes it clear in her letter to Council about the matter that Council should, quote, tailor its review of the community strategic plan to suit their circumstances. In my view, we have extraordinary circumstances with important consequences and outcomes and actions, and Council should consider making its flood recovery plan its community strategic plan in the short term, with amendments and changes as required as new information comes to hand and the quantum of the problem becomes clear. In my view, it will take the full term of the current Council to begin to fully deal with the problems we are facing as a local government area. And finally, item 15.1, superannuation. While superannuation can be a vexed issue for reasons I won't elaborate here, superannuation should be paid to councillors who give up their time to serve the community, but care must be taken in the superannuation fund chosen, for some are riskier than others, are not well managed, and may be unfunded, borrowing on future contributions from others. Superannuation is an equity issue. It should be an essential part of local government and being a councillor. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gates. Is there any questions? None tonight. Thank you for your presentation. Have a safe trip home. Thank you. Number 4, apologies. Everyone's present. Mayoral minute. There is no mayoral minute. Confirmation of the minutes from the April meeting. Could I get a mover, please, for their accuracy? Councillor McGillen. Second, Councillor Hayes. Does anyone have any dispute on the accuracy? Put that motion and all those in favour. Item 7, matters arising out of the minutes. Has any councillor got? Nil. We'll move on. Declarations of interest. Has any councillor got a declaration of interest? Mr. General Manager, have you received any?
I haven't received any from any councillors. However, I have a declaration of my own this evening. So it's in item 22.1, which is the General Manager's annual performance review item. Obviously relates to my performance and remuneration. Therefore, it's a pecuniary interest, and I will leave the room at that point in time.
Thank you. None from any other staff?
No others.
Thank you. Petitions are nil. We now go over to item 10.1. It's a notice of motion from Councillor Patrick Deegan, voluntary house raising. Councillor Deegan.
Yes, so I've been contacted by a number of people.
Could you move the motion?
Oh, yes, sorry. I'll move the motion.
Councillor
yep.
Deegan. Could I get a seconder, please?
Yeah, I'll second.
Councillor Hayes. Councillor Deegan.
Yeah, so I've been contacted by a number of people in the community, particularly in the mid-Richmond, in relation to the process should they wish to voluntarily raise their home following the floods. And I guess as it's stated there in the motion, they're concerned about time delays in being able to raise their homes and the impact that may have on any repairs they undertake, and obviously council's in the process of the floodplain risk management plan, and for council to seek assistance from the state government to be able to expedite that process, and for the state government to maybe be able to step in and lead the way on these house raising schemes.
Councillor Hayes, did you want to speak as a seconder?
Yeah, just like Patrick's noticed, it is what it says, but the cost to finish the floodplain risk management plan, $200,000. Where do we plan to get that from in a hurry?
Mr. General Manager?
At this stage, that isn't funded. So the flood study's funded, and the draft of that has been completed and was all but ready to go out for community consultation when hit by the flood events. Subsequent to that, we have received funding from the Department of Planning to review the model against what occurred. So obviously to learn from those two events, test the model. So that's been funded by the state government. So obviously, and that's being provided to other councils similarly. So that's good that that's happening. Once they've done that review, obviously it will continue through the process of public consultation. Once we obviously have the model, we're then in a position to assess what the model tells us to put together the floodplain risk management plan. We've identified that in the flood response document, and we assessed it in that document as around needing $150,000 to do that work. So we've identified it in that document. We've obviously made that aware to state and federal governments that that's what we'd need to get on with that. I don't know the time frame on getting one of those done. Obviously, availability of consultants and contractors and technical experts at the moment is a challenge, in all areas. So that's what we're after, is around $150,000 to move that forward as quickly as we can. But obviously we now have to wait for that review of the updated flood model, which does cover all of the Richmond Valley, so that we can then go through that consultation process.
Adjoining councils, Lismore and Ballina, are they in the same predicament as us with their flood modelling and to get to the stage where they can get into this house raising?
I don't know for sure, but you would think after the enormity of the flood, there'd be a lot of councillors having a look at their flood models from the past. I just think that would be required of them if they're going to do the DAs and assess those on a future flood levels.
So that leads me to, why isn't it a state government issue? Why aren't they taking this over and putting this in place for across the whole area?
Well,
rather than us having to deal with it at a cost of $200,000.
That's one thing there will be out of that Shanestone inquiry. Flood inquiry. Yeah, not Shanestone. Okay.
So what the state government's view at the moment is they're waiting for the outcomes of the flood inquiry, which is the Mary O'Kane and Mick Fuller led New South Wales government inquiry. They are to report by end of June or late June on a number of matters in their terms of reference, and then on the rest of the matters in their terms of reference in September. So the answers we're getting at the moment is that the government is waiting for the first stage of that inquiry and any recommendations around house raising, land swaps and the like. So that's the response we're getting when we raise this issue.
A question, thank you. How many residents does council currently have on its database interested in the voluntary house raising scheme?
I don't know exactly.
The last time I checked in with our team, it was around a dozen people had indicated an interest, but it's probably a couple of weeks since I've actually asked for that figure, so there may be more. I think at the moment, obviously we had a report to the last council meeting on this matter, which did make it clear the timeframes and that we aren't in a position to move forward right now. So whether that means people are sitting back and waiting until the landscape changes, but we're certainly very aware that people don't want to wait, and we get all of the reasons why that's the case. So it is it's another of a long list of frustrating issues that we are dealing with at the moment. So yeah, urgency would be great, but I don't know that urgency of getting all of this work done and done thoroughly, you know, it's 12 months of work anyway, you know, to get it all done properly. People want to know now, do they fix their home or do they do it while they raise it? The other probably point to make is that some of those people who have made inquiries wouldn't meet the current definition of eligibility for a house raising scheme because their property is built at the 1 in 100 plus freeboard height, whereas the the house raising schemes are at the 1 in, is it 20 or 25? 20, 1 in 20, 1 in 20. So there's a big difference there.
Councillor Hayes.
With the criteria, as just mentioned, it's hard for anyone to know what they can and can't do. They all want to fix their homes, but you need to repair your home once it's lifted. But the way I understand it, they're not, any houses that are already raised don't qualify. You know, they want to raise them that little bit further, well, they're not going to qualify. Is that the,
Unless they change the,
yeah,
and just say, under the current criteria for the house raising scheme, which is a state government, you know, there's specific guidelines for it. So unless they were to make that change, yeah, many houses wouldn't be eligible under current criteria.
I understand the intent of the notice of motion, and I do note that at the last council meeting on page 16 we had a voluntary house raising scheme report come to council, where we said that we would progress in that, and I understand this is to fasten that up. But in that report, I think it was, or we were told that that review of the voluntary house raising scheme was only done in February this year by the state government. So that would need to be reviewed if we are going to get a large number of homes to be lifted in the Richmond Valley. And I'm just concerned that I don't want to give people out there false hope that if we write this letter, something's going to happen in the next couple of months, because there's a lot of work to be done, as the General Manager said, with these other studies. So I'll be supporting it to try to quicken it up, but I have got concerns that some people might think it's going to happen in the next few months. I can't see that happening because we've still got to wait for that flood inquiry to come, and then the government then will have to work out how they're going to do it. But I think Councillor Hayes brought up a good note that it should be done regionally or as state, because I could not, when the part 3 says a voluntary house raising scheme for Richmond Valley, the state government, I can't see the state government doing one for here, one for Lismore, one for Ballina, one for Clarence and one for Tweed and anywhere else down the river. So I think that really needs to be changed from just our area to a regional area or a state scheme, I think.
Yeah, I'm happy for that wording to be adjusted to include the local region or what the appropriate wording would be.
North Coast?
It's sort of the Northern Rivers region.
Yeah.
Just go with that if you're happy with that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's likely that if the New South Wales government reviews a house raising scheme, that it would apply across New South Wales. They may consider a region approach, given obviously the propensity of the Northern Rivers to flood, but obviously any region can flood, but that's a matter for them. So I think if you just say Northern Rivers region, just shows that it's obviously that's been the area affected by these flooding events mostly.
You happy with that to be changed? Councillor Hayes, a second? Okay. No, I've got nothing else. Any other councillors like to speak? Councillor Deegan in closing?
Yeah, so I guess what the residents of the Mid-Richmond in particular really need is some form of certainty, and some people have expressed that the communication hasn't necessarily been getting to them. I know Council has been very proactive in the communication, so maybe more messages could go out and maybe even to explain to residents some of that information around to be eligible, it would be that 1 in 20 year level, and then then have that certainty to know, well, I'm very unlikely to be eligible, so if we're going to do this, we're going to have to do it on our own as well.
Yep. Put that motion then. All those in favour? Carried. Unanimously. Page 9, 11.1, mayor's attendance. I'll move that. Seconder?
Second.
Councillor Cornish. Any questions? Put that motion in. All those in favour? Carried. Delegates' reports, nils. Matters determined without debate. Has any councillors got any items they'd like to call?
Oh, 15.1.
15.1. I thought I'd lost my list.
15.2.
Sorry, 15.2. Any other councillors? I've got 15.3 and 15.7. No more? So that tells me I need a recommendation for 15.4, 4, 5, 6, 17.1, 17.2. Is that correct? Someone move that, please.
Second.
Who was the seconder, sorry?
Cornish.
Councillor Cornish. I'll put that motion in. All those in favour? Carried. 15.1, Councillor Humphries.
Move the recommendation as written, Mr Mayor.
I'll second.
Councillor Humphries, Councillor Hayes.
Mr Mayor, I'm moving the recommendation as written in line with option 1 as detailed in the report to commence payment of superannuation equivalent in amount to superannuation guarantee payment from the 1st of July this year. On the 13th of May last year, a local government amendment was passed by the New South Wales Parliament providing council the option to make superannuation contributions for councillors from the 1st of July. This is a very big milestone for local government throughout New South Wales, following in the footsteps of Queensland and Victoria. Whilst I understand that some community members might feel that it's not appropriate for councillor superannuation to be paid out of council revenue, it may also be that community members assume that councillors already receive superannuation as it was regulated for the broader workforce in 1992, some 30 years ago. Given that members of the community become councillors to serve the community, council revenue being used is also the reason it is often quite difficult for councillors and never the right time to discuss financial benefits. In their roles, councillors strive to ensure communities receive the best value for every dollar of turnover within their council. This amendment to the Act is, I believe, an investment in local government into the future. It has the potential to encourage more diversity within the elected body and to promote the image, ultimately increasing interest in the roles of councillors within New South Wales. An enormous amount of research and consultation went into the discussion paper released by the New South Wales Office of Local Government, namely strengthening local government councillor superannuation, and also with a large body of work undertaken by Local Government New South Wales. Some of the reasons supporting the debate are payment will address an historic anomaly that has seen councillors denied the benefit of superannuation payments, which are a financial benefit awarded to the broader workforce. It is hoped that it will encourage more women to stand as candidates and receive a boost to their superannuation fund, often much less than that of men, and ultimately also attracting younger people to stand for council as they navigate the financial hurdles associated with home ownership and growing a family. I feel that it's important for council to look to the future of local government and strive to attract candidates from a range of demographics and to run for council. Now that would be a good outcome. Nonetheless, recognition of payment and the payment of superannuation for councillors is long overdue. Thank you.
Councillor Hay.
In Dr Gates' address a while ago, he's a little bit concerned of where the money's going to be invested in, what super funds and what types of super funds. We get to choose where the money goes? Is that
In the
correct?
report, I believe that every councillor must nominate their super fund within a month, about a month. I think that's what the report said. Otherwise, it can't be paid to you. So you will pick your own super fund.
Is there any restrictions around that, or is there any rules and regulations about what we can put it into? And
I don't know. I can't reply
does
to
there
that.
need
Maybe,
to be?
maybe the General Manager needs to follow that up, that question, if you can't answer that now.
We can check that, but I'm pretty sure it'll be the same as for any other employee where you can actually choose your own super fund. So I'm not sure why, the superannuation for councillors would be different. It is a choice, but I can check whether there's any implications other than that.
Any other speakers? Well, Councillor Humphries, you stole a lot of my hard thinking and writing, so that's all right, but I'd just like to say something. I find it disappointing and unfair by the New South Wales Government is putting the responsibility back on councillors to decide if these contributions are paid when it's illegal not to pay other workforce sector superannuation. Councillors may not be employees of council, however, we are required to pay tax on our remuneration like any other wage earner. So I believe that the government should have just come out and said, yes, you're having super, because it can cause a bit of divide in the community, but I think it's it's about time that this occurred, and as Councillor Humphries said, it is occurring in other states, and it's an anomaly that has been happened because it's the federal government made the superannuation compulsory for anyone in the workforce. So I think it's just about time it came back into line like every other worker. Any other speakers? Councillor Humphries to close.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And as written in the report, if option 1 does get resolved this evening, the matter will be brought to Council as part of the 22-23 mayoral and councillor fees determination report to Council.
Thank you. That finishes the debate. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Thank you. 15.2, Councillor Humphries, I believe.
Moving the recommendation as printed, Mr Mayor.
Seconder?
Second.
Councillor Cornish. Councillor Humphries.
Mr Mayor, there's a lot of good reading there. The draft delivery plan and the documents are going out for submission for at least 28 days. All the documents are extremely important to the function of council and its relevance within our communities in the Richmond Valley. I feel that all eyes will be on the draft delivery plan, and I look forward to the submissions. Simply reading the paragraph on the bottom of page 13, I think will have people wanting to flick through the pages and see what is entailed within that document. As written there, it says Council's 3-year recovery plan is in response to the February-March 2022 floods. This plan sets out Richmond Valley Council's vision to help restore the Richmond Valley over the next 3 years in partnership with the community, disaster support agencies and state and federal governments. It is a plan to not just rebuild, but to build back better and stronger. And we are ready to face the next challenge and embrace the next opportunity. Let's put the challenges further away and let's just run with the opportunities. Thank you.
Any other speakers? Councillors, this is like a very important document for council. It's our way forward over the coming years, and I'd just like to read a bit in a paragraph there that the approval of the council's special rate variation has given council the ability to focus on moving towards a break-even operation result before capital gains and contributions, which is the benchmark set by the New South Wales Office of Local Government. Finding ways of achieving additional income, reducing operating expenditure and refining assets valuation methodologies to accurately reflect depreciation of council assets remain the key areas to focus on moving forward. Councillors, this is the last year of the special rate variation, and as can be seen in the report over the previous years, Council has worked diligently to achieve a fit for the future outcome for this Council. I don't believe there will be a need, and I would not support a further special rate variation in this term of Council. I think we got to where we need to be financially, and I thank the previous councils over a long history of this council, even back to the amalgamation time. It was noted then that this council had to get its books in orders, and we went a long time without taking out loans to the stage where we nearly did not owe any money in the general fund. We did in sewer and water, but that was necessary. So I think it's been a great achievement, and it's good to see that this budget going forward will most probably achieve where we want to be in the fit for the future. So that's been great. The other thing is I'd like to mention is that, another paragraph, the draft budget has been prepared at a challenging time when the full impacts of the February-March 2022 floods are still being assessed and many issues are yet to be resolved. Council expects that there will be increasing clarity in the scale of damage and repairs required and the level of financial system available in the 22-23 financial year unfolds. Council, I would expect there will be many amendments to this draft budget, but they will be reported as Council as they arise. We don't know what's ahead of us. It's still being assessed. Some of those assessments are in, but I'm pretty sure over the coming month or so there will be a lot of issues raised ahead, and it will affect this budget going forward. So I would like to thank the staff for putting this together. I know it goes out into the community, but it's been under challenging times to get this to come to Council. There's a time frame. We have to have it back to the June meeting after it goes out in public exhibition. So, Mr General Manager, could you pass Council's appreciation and thank you to all staff members that had input into this, please? It's much appreciated. Any other speakers? Councillor Humphries for closing. I'll put that motion then. All those in favour? Carried. We now move to 15.3. Flood recovery community support options. I'll move that. Can I get a seconder, please?
Yeah, second.
Who was that? I had my head down. Councillor Hayes. Thank you. Councillors, I'd just like to, there's one part there where the we resolved for the General Manager to write to the Minister about rate relief that it did occur. You may recall for those councillors in the last term when the fires ravaged our local government area, requesting that we get, they introduce rate relief. I believe there could be a reply from the Minister. I know the letter did, but or from the Office of Local Government. Been follow-up.
There's obviously that letter. Last week there were some further questions asked around what the potential costs of a rate relief scheme is for the affected properties in our area. So that analysis was done by our team quickly and provided through to the Office of Local Government. So that would indicate, and I've had some feedback from other councils, that it's certainly something being seriously considered. So hopefully our advocacy on this comes to fruition and our ratepayers that have been affected get some support. So I'm not sure what the time period is, whether it's 6 months or 12 months, don't know. But hopefully that work's happening at the moment, and fingers crossed there'll be an announcement soon.
That letter from Council went in on the 30th of March, and I'd just like to note that other councils, at their last meeting, they wrote a letter asking for that. So I'd just like to once again, General Manager and his team are on the front foot in this flood recovery issue, and as he said, I hope it comes to fruition and our community can get some rate relief, because every dollar helps in the recovery process. So once again, thank you and well done for the team.
Through you, Mr Mayor, could I ask a question?
I was just going to say, anyone else want to speak? Please do.
I'd just like to ask for a comment. On page 17, it's about the water usage and the impact that, of course, the floods have had on residents, and that having received their invoices, there, many of them phoned and stated, or however they contacted council, that they're unwilling to pay, as they believe council should not be raising charges during this period. And I can see there that council's put together a website so that residents can be in touch. Could I just ask what the uptake do you think that's working, if people are actually engaging through that website? How you think that might be progressing? Or it's not?
Director Ryan.
Through you, Mr Mayor. At this point in time, I'm not too sure how many people we've had come back through the website. Our rates department has received a number of calls from ratepayers that have expressed their unwillingness to pay the water bills that have just been issued. Those water fees actually are for the period leading up to the flood. We're still not 100% sure what the impact of, obviously there was a lot of houses that have had water meters ripped off, water systems. Some of the older places have their hot water systems on the outside. They've been removed by the floodwaters from the premises. So our next read that we will do will actually be a physical read. The last read was actually done via looking back at previous years, because we couldn't get to water meters because of the floods. But this next read will be a physical read where we actually have teams go out and go to every property. That way we'll be able to actually see what damage has been done, and also it'll give us an accurate read on from when their last physical read was done to this read, and we can work out what the value of the increase, if it's beyond normal. So then we can have discussions with those ratepayers and make adjustments if required.
Very much, because given that it was the prior period, it does add another layer to the problem. When I saw that council arranged a notification system on council's website, I thought, well, that's really good. At least we've got some communication happening. But if we don't, what else can we do? Like, not tonight. I don't need an answer tonight. But if we're not getting an uptake there and we're not in touch with people, the meter readers won't want to communicate. How else can we get out to people if they are hurting and they're not happy?
Would this rate relief pay all that?
So just to give you an indication of the scale, the information that we were asked for from the Office of Local Government was both for rate relief and also water and sewer charges. So we've done an assessment based on those properties that were impacted. We had to do that assessment via postcodes. The total sum was about 6.1 million for rate relief and 2.2 million in water and sewer. Breaking that down, the water component, my quick maths, is just under $1 million. Okay, so that's annually. So, you know, we obviously fully understand people, you know, didn't like getting a bill 2 months after a flood. But as you know, Ryan outlined, it was for a period before the flood had occurred. We're obviously doing everything we can to adjust things to take into account what happened, and the fact that, you know, people lost, you know, hot water systems, and there were water leaks and they lost their meters, and so we're going to have to work out a way of dealing with that. So obviously some support through the state government would be really welcomed to deal with that. But I think it is important to understand the scale of the impact on our business if we just don't charge anyone. You know, over 8.3 million combined for a 12-month period. If you just said, you know, we lose that revenue, that's obviously a massive hole in our budgets. And that's why, obviously, when natural disasters occur, it is the domain of the federal and the state government to step in and support people. And that's why there's the natural disaster recovery funding arrangements, which have all the different categories that apply to both funding council infrastructure recovery, but also, you know, the grants and the funding and the payouts that are given to people is to cover all of these impacts that they, you know, they're faced with. And part of that is also, you know, paying their bills, whether it be water, whether it be rates, whether it be power, you know, all these other utilities and bills that people have to pay. But I suppose because local council is a tier of government, it's looked at us to say, well, just don't charge us. But we aren't funded to do that or to be basically a welfare provider, which is what it is. So I know that's a harsh reality, but that's why we advocate so hard for support from the federal and state government, and hopefully we've got some more coming our way.
What did you say the rate component is?
For 12 months, the impacted properties was 6.1 million.
And we get about 15 million in.
Yeah, it's around
About 15.
about 15.
You know, it's over a third of our rates would be gone. So that would put a big dent in. So just hope the government comes to the party and they will be subsidised for their water and their rates. And council can then keep delivering the services our community expect.
And reading the correspondence attached to the report, there's some good positive communication coming in because of council's advocacy and meetings.
And that's why I pull that out. I just would realise that councillors and council itself would be getting many inquiries about what's going to happen with the rates, and I just wanted the General Manager to give you an update that it's in the wind. So.
I'll just touch on, I've had an inquiry from some residents that have got property both in Lismore City Council and in our council, and they put it on me. They said, why haven't we declared that and approached the government? They actually said declare, but why haven't we approached the government about paying the rate bill, you know, for the flood affected areas? I pointed them to the council, the minutes of the council meeting in March, where it says there that our General Manager has already written to the state government, and they were surprised, and they went on to say, well, Lismore have just done it, and I said, well, you probably should get on to Lismore and see why they hadn't done it 2 months earlier, and they were you know, they were astounded that we got in so early and led the way, and then Lismore followed. I don't know what Ballina have done, but that leads me to, is it worthwhile doing something on a regional basis about that as well, as in letter writing?
There's
a group?
There's a JO meeting on Friday, and I can raise it there regionally if you'd like me to do that.
I think that'd be a great idea.
Okay, thank you. Any other speakers?
Mr Mayor, just on a positive note, also included in the report, the temporary occupation permits increasing to 2 years and not having to apply again after the 1 year. That's a really good move. And even the small gestures, which of course add up to the small gesture of being able to view files and waiving the $30 to flood affected residents is all a plus.
Thank you. Any other speakers? I don't need to write a reply. I'll put that motion in. All those in favour? Carried. 15.7, Quarterly Budget Review Statement for the quarter ending 31st of March. And Mr General Manager, I believe we have a presentation from Director Gator. Is that correct? When you're ready.
We'll see if the clicker works. No, it doesn't. Or do I wait there? We'll see now. Yes, it does. IT7. Quarterly budget review for the March quarter ending March this year. The budget cash summary. So our income has gone up 1.6 million to $89.5 million. Our expenses from continuing operations have gone up 1.5 million to 73.2 million. Our operating result from continuing operations has gone up just under 100,000 to 16.347 million. Operating result before capital grants and contributions is at a deficit of 1.6 million, which is nearly $2 million better result than the previous quarter. Our non-cash expenses, which is majority depreciation, is unchanged at 17 million. Loan borrowings are unchanged at around 8 million. Our capital expenditures, our capital works program, we've taken out 7.1 million of capital works. And the reasons for that will follow. So we're back to 38.5 million there. And our loan and principal repayments are unchanged at just under 3 million, which gives us a funding result of 465,000, 177 of that going back into reserve funding, and we've got an unrestricted funds, unrestricted cash of 288,000. For operating income and expenditure, we've got three main changes. In emergency management, we've got a $1 million increase in grant funding from local government recovery grants, and that's to pay for our immediate recovery activities from the floods. We've got $2.1 million increase in operating income and $1.5 million in expenditure for private works, and that's to do with the Pacific Highway upgrade and the asset handovers with Transport for New South Wales. And in our quarries focus area, we've got $110,000 increase in operating income, and that's just to bring the Woodview quarry up to actual income that we've been receiving from that lease arrangement. We've done a big review of our capital works program, and we're still undertaking assessments, as the Mayor said earlier, in the flood, for the flood damage in our infrastructure. Council, like all other industries, we're going through supply constraints and contractor availability issues. That happened or started with COVID-19, and obviously with the floods around here, it's made it worse, and now with the floods in Queensland, considering a lot of our products come down from Queensland, could have another detrimental effect on that. Along with that, also the persistent wet weather has had an effect on a number of our capital works projects, where we've had to push projects out into next financial year. So with the review of capital works program, it's resulted in 7.12 million of projected works taken out. So now we're sitting at just over 38.5 million. The major changes, we've had a 1.6 million decrease in the casino swimming pool upgrade, and that's due to flooding at that site and also the consistent rain that's been going on. Under sports grounds, parks and facilities, we've got a decrease of 1.29 million at the casino showground and racecourse upgrade, and that's also due to wet weather and the grounds being utilised for the flood recovery agencies. We've got a decrease of 105,000 in the Corrokai Riverside Pontoon and Woodburn Riverside Jetty upgrade projects, and they're postponed into next financial year. Building and maintaining roads, we've got 2.27 million decrease in the scheduled works due to emergency restoration works taking precedence over our normal works. Real estate development, we've got 525,000 reduction for the sewer rising main for Casino Industries activation project, and that's delayed till next financial year, also due to ongoing wet weather. In waste management, we've got a $1 million decrease for the construction of Cell 6 at Namoona, and that's transferred into next financial year. And in sewer services, we've got 217,000 decrease in capital works for sewer services, capital works due to damage. The guys are doing their infrastructure assessments at the moment, so those jobs have been pushed into next year also. So in summary, the major changes due to this quarter were reviewed as largely a result of additional grant funding being approved and increased private works. The capital works have decreased by 7.1 million to a projected total of 38.5 million. There's still a risk that the delivery of capital works program will be further impacted by ongoing wet weather and the availability of contractors and supply chain issues. Any impacts will be monitored and budgets will be adjusted accordingly in the future quarterly reviews or monthly budget adjustment reports, and Council's projected financial position at year end still remains satisfactory. Is there any questions?
Just one there on page 32. I notice we're decreasing the estimated funding from the reserves of over $7 million. We're only going to have to transfer 177,000. So that's telling me a lot of those capital works won't be done this year.
Yeah, so the 7 million is actually how much we've taken out of the capital works program.
Yep.
And which means that there's where we were going to be drawing 6 odd million out,
Yep.
we're actually putting 177,000 back in.
Back in.
Yeah.
Okay. So that tells me that we're going to defer a lot of capital works.
Yep, correct.
I'm just inquiring, are they contractors doing those jobs? Because if we carry over that much work with our own staff, there's no way in the world we would have the workforce to be able to do that in the next coming year. So a lot of that be contracts like the pool, the rail
Pool,
trail.
and also, no, the rail patrol stays, the showground, they're contractors.
Yeah,
So the
okay.
big ones are the
Yeah,
contractors.
so it won't really affect our workforce, it'll be mainly contractors.
No, our guys will be pretty busy just doing a
Oh, I
lot
know
of flood
that, but
recovery
yeah, I
stuff.
just thought
Yeah.
when you see that 7 million come out,
Yeah.
and you think, oh, how are we going to do that? It's contractors that'll be doing it. So, okay, thank you. Need a move, did I call that? I think I did. So I'll move that. Seconder, please.
Second.
Councillor Humphries. As Director Ryan said, you can, Gator said, you can see the impact on that graph on page 33, how it's gone down, and that was only 1 month of the flood. So we're going to have some variances coming up, as I said earlier. So I just want councillors to be aware that that's going to happen, and it's really out of our hands until we get those assessments. But I thank you for your presentation. And is there any other councillors who'd like to ask a question or speak? Put that motion in. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Page 41, item 19, matters for information. Could I get a mover, please?
Moved.
Councillor Cornish, seconder. Councillor Hayes. Councillor Cornish, have you got any items you'd like to comment on, or no? Any other councillor in matters for information? I usually find a couple in this, but not tonight. No one? I'll put that motion in. All those in favour? Carried. Item 20, on page 55, questions on notice, nil, and questions for next meeting in writing.
Yes, I have one. Vaughan's got a copy of it, so you can pass it over. I'll read it out. Recent casino water security study carried out by Public Works Advisory has indicated that casino secure yield has a 30-year forecast of a 514 megalitre per year shortfall if nothing is done to rectify this. Current water production is distributed as follows: 25% for residential use, 20% for non-residential use, 10% is chewed up by water leaks, and 45% is used by the NCMC, now known as the Casino Food Co-op, for its operations. This study has reminded us that the NCMC are on a long-term contracted deal for their water supply that is at the least very generous in comparison with other non-residential users. Can a report come back to Council detailing the effect that this has on the long-term water security of the town water supply and casino? Can that report also outline the contract arrangements that are in place between Richmond Valley Council and the NCMC? and how the rest of the ratepayers of the Richmond Valley Council are financially affected by this agreement. Include a desktop study as to the result if the NCMC were not drawing water from the casino water supply. Discuss any other options that are available to the NCMC for their future water supply.
You've received that?
Yes, so we've got a copy, so yep, we'll take that and bring a response back to a future meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for the next meeting in writing? Thank you. We'll now move over to matters referred to closed committee. Recommendation that council considers the confidential reports listed below in the meeting closed to the public in accordance with section 10A(2) of the Local Government Act 1993, and the item to consider tonight will be 22.1 General Manager's Annual Performance Review 2021-22. Could I get a mover, please?
Moved.
Councillor Cornish.
Second.
Seconder, Councillor Hayes. Mr General Manager, has there been any written representation made regarding this meeting going into closed council? I believe there is one. I will read that, seeing that the item refers to you. There is one written, as I said, objection. And I will just read section 10A, part 4. A council or a committee of a council may allow members of the public to make representations to or at a meeting before any part of the meeting is closed to the public as to whether that part of the meeting should be closed. We have one objection, as I said earlier, from Dr Gates. His admissions objects to the matter being heard in closed council on the grounds that matter is in the public interest and that the process and the purpose of the performance review should be able to be subject to the public scrutiny. Dr Gates further raised concerns that councillors may not have adequate training or experience to conduct the performance review process and that the methodology for the review is not subject to public scrutiny. Councillors under 10A, Part 2D, A, personal matters concerning to particular individuals other than councillors are to be heard in the local government closed committee under the Local Government Act 1993, or they can be. So I believe this is a personal issue, and I'll be allowing it to go ahead. Have we got any other representations from the gallery? If not, any councillor like to speak on that? I'll put that motion then. All those in favour? Thank you. That puts us in closed council. I believe, Mr General Manager, are you and a few of the staff members will leave? Hello? Oh.
Open again.
Councillors, I'll just read the resolution of closed council.
Do you have to open it? Do you have to get a resolution?
I've opened it to come back in.
Okay. Oh, you've already done that.
I do to go back.
Sorry, Mr.
That's
Mayor.
why you're allowed in.
Okay. I'm usually in here. Don't mind me.
The recommendation that the panel agreed and recommend, 1, in accordance with clause 8.3 of the Standard Contract of Employment General Managers of Local Government in New South Wales and the guidelines for the appointment and oversight of general managers, a discretionary increase as outlined in the report be awarded to the general manager's total remuneration package in recognition of the results achieved for the period, the high standards set and achieved by the General Manager and in line with the market remuneration rates in like-sized council. 2, the discretionary increase is to take effect from the General Manager's anniversary date being the 16th of February 2022. And 3, the Mayor, General Manager and Facilitator are to develop a draft performance agreement for the coming year for the review and adoption by all councillors. Congratulations, Mr General Manager, on your review. It's much appreciated, and we look forward to working with you as a council in the future.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thanks, councillors.
I now close the meeting. Everyone have a safe trip home. Thank you very much.